Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Monday, June the 3rd, 2024. We are now into Pride Month and we've got a couple of incidents to tell you about that happened over the weekend, one in Winnipeg and one in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The one in Philadelphia got a little bit more physical, shall we put it, than the one in Winnipeg did. But it was interesting to see the video of this as the left begins to eat itself. As we all know, this intersectionality thing can never hold because you've got opposing points of view all trying to get together under one agenda, one giant monolith to crush us, the logical thinking people out there who are simply looking for the truth and want to live our lives, as to as opposed to all of the victims and activists out there who want to shove their agenda down our throats. So on the one hand, you've got the Palestinian protesters, and then on the other hand, you've got the Pride Parade attendees and participants, and we'll show you the video of what happened there in just a little bit. I want to show you what happened on Saturday. You guys all know, I think, that I used to work in radio, right? So let me just bring up some radio station profile pics from Facebook. This all happened on Saturday morning. I woke up and I saw a post from 100.3 The Bear Rocks in Edmonton. Now, this used to be a kick-ass rock radio station. I'm not sure what it is these days. I was actually having a conversation with a friend the other day about what has happened to rock and roll. Have you been able to think of one band that's come along in the last 10 years that's a rock band, not a pop band, not a synth band, not a boy band, not a whatever Gaga, all a pop band, rock and roll, like Black Crowes, Rolling Stones, rock and roll, Aerosmith, that kind of a thing, Led Zeppelin. Can you think of one that has come up in the last 10 years? Because I can't. There's a band called Greta Van Fleet that's put out some new stuff in the past 10 years, but they sound almost exactly like Led Zeppelin. So that means that rock radio stations are now forced to play older music because there's nothing new they can play, which oldens up their audience. But at the same time, they have to maintain certain philosophies that their head offices pass down to them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to point out to you all of the radio stations, and not just rock, country as well, all and some pop radio stations who have put this flag up on their Facebook avatar. This is the rock station in Edmonton, the Bear. Then you've got this one here. That is the rock station in Ottawa, which is called Shea 106. There it is there. All right. Now that one's owned by Rogers. The previous one owned by Bell Media. So Rogers and Bell. Now we've got 98.1 CHFI, which is a pop adult contemporary station out of Toronto, which is owned by Rogers. We've got this one, Shome FM. This used to be a flame-throwing rock station in Montreal, now owned by Bell Media. You've got this one here, the one I've worked at 3 times, and I'm so ashamed to say that. 92 City FM, or 92 City, whatever they call themselves these days. Rogers owned, that's in Winnipeg. This is CJ92, Bell owned in Calgary. 93.3 Country. This is, I think, in Kingston, Ontario. We've got this one, Jack FM. This is, again, another adult hit radio station in Vancouver. That's Rogers owned. This is K-Rock 105.7, Rogers owned in Kingston, Ontario. I think there may be a couple more. 95.9 Star FM. That's Bell owned in Calgary. Yeah. So that's what we're seeing from our left-wing corporate media these days. Everybody's getting on the bus. Everybody's getting on the train because they've been either paid off, they've been forced into it somehow, or they just believe in it. And I don't know if they believe in it. It could be that if they don't do it, much like politicians, they'll become chastised in the media. But then again, they are the media. They control the media. The media is the media. So they can stand up and say, no, we're not doing this. I'm sorry. We're not going to pander to less than 1% of the population and kill the rest of our listenership. They are not reading the room, my friends. They're not doing it. Anyway, we're going to get more into that a little bit later on with the clashes and what Jordan Peterson had to say about Pride, which I found to be very, 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 very interesting. All right, the show is brought to you as usual by Canada Nano Silver, canadanaноsilver.ca. The toothpaste available in cinnamon, in spearmint, and in bubbleberry for the kids. Bubbleberry. They're going to want to brush their teeth 8 times in a day. Can I brush my teeth again, Grandma? Dad? Uh, no. Like, when have you ever heard that in a household? Naturally whitening helps keep teeth clean with triple action nano silverceuticals technology. It's made from only the highest quality ingredients. The unique toothpaste is kid safe and uses powerful natural ingredients. Triple action nano silver helps clean teeth and promotes healthy teeth and gums. Then above ground mind coral calcium helps to scrub and remineralize your teeth and gums. It's very good for the gums as well. And one of the biggest things about this, aside from what it's made with, including the silverceutical technology, it's what it doesn't have. And that, my friends, fluoride. That's right. There's no fluoride in these products. CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. We're going to kick off the show in just a second. Anthony Fauci lied. You might be saying, yeah, big whoop, Shadow. Tell me something I don't know. All right. Well, what about the 6 foot rule? Have you ever heard him comment before on the 6 foot rule that we all had to adhere to? Because it was scientifically proven that was the best. We're gonna go back in time 4 years in just a second. But first, I want to say some hellos to you folks. Kev from Canada Nano Silver is watching tonight. Hello, Kevin Parker. And what does Kevin say? CRTC and PMRC choose what we are allowed to hear. That's a pretty broad generalization, my friend. And I would say it's mostly incorrect. The CRTC really is a board of sleepy retired guys that meet once a year. And they take forever to decide on anything. Like, seriously. And they're all about the money. They don't care. They don't even know what they're doing there. I've been to some of these meetings, these CRTC meetings in Ottawa, and I have to tell you that there's like this was about a radio station trying to renew its license for 5 years, like something that is very important to them because it's their business, it's their livelihood, right? And it was a smaller company at the time, Standard Radio back in the day, owned by one guy, Gary Slate. So they're trying to renew their radio license in Ottawa, and 2 of the commissioners out of the 6 sitting there were snoring. Snoring. I sat in the front row. I saw this. I couldn't even believe it. It's true. The CRTC they are what they are. Christine is watching tonight. Chrissy in Paris, Ontario. Hello, Kathy. What happened to celebrating straight people? Well, we don't need that kind of attention. We don't need that affirmation because we're straight. We don't need it. We're grown-ups, right? Who needs to be affirmed all the time? Children, people who are very insecure, mentally ill. Yeah, do good, right? We don't need that stuff. We're grown-ups. We don't have to have somebody telling us how great we are all the time for whatever we happen to be, whether it's straight or gay or a carpenter or I read a book today. It doesn't matter. Your accomplishments are your own, and congratulations to you for doing something constructive today, my friends. Now let's move on. If you're watching on Facebook or on Twitter, it's a like and a share or a heart and a retweet. Let's get it out. Retweet, reshare. Let's get it out there to as many people as we possibly can. Who's watching on X tonight? Yogurt Girl, you go, girl. You go, girl, is watching from St. Anne, Manitoba. Vilma's here. Patricia's watching. Web jamming. Weeby jamming. Mustang Sandy. The Mouth is of the South. Who else? I'm seeing a lot from the same person here. Oh, you guys are saying hello to each other. I get it. So I'm interrupting your private conversation. Stump Slayer is watching tonight. Uniacki watching from, I'm probably still saying that wrong, but at this point, I think it's just a private joke. Cheryl is watching tonight from Gloucester, Ontario. Lexus 400H. That's Sharon and Dawn watching from Frankville, Ontario. All right. And again, if you're watching on Rumble, give it one of those thumbs up, and don't forget to share it by hitting the share button beneath the screen. That highlights the URL above the screen. Copy and paste. Blah 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 blah. All right then. This piece goes back 4 years. All right, this is some ABC affiliate in the United States talking about the importance of 6-foot distancing, social distancing, and the reason that we need to do it. 4 years ago, this came up. Let's all have a look.
We want to take a closer look at this important issue of social distancing, the practice implemented by public health officials to keep contagious diseases like coronavirus from spreading. Experts recommend people try to stay at least 6 feet away from each other. Here's a look at exactly how far 6 feet is. Well, this, of course, is aimed at trying to cut down the virus's spread, but you may be wondering why 6 feet. The reason is a little gross, but it's important. Experts believe the virus is mainly spread through droplets that come out of your mouth or nose. When an infected person speaks, exhales, coughs, or sneezes, the droplets travel about 3 to 6 feet before gravity pulls them to the ground. So stay 6 feet away from someone and you stop the spread. It's also important to try to block coughs or sneezes with a tissue or your sleeve so as not to send those droplets flying directly towards someone nearby. And what about social gatherings? CDC now recommends you avoid social gatherings of more than 10 people. That could mean cancellations of weddings, family reunions, birthday parties, even funerals. Adults who are not sick or considered to be at risk can still date, but
we don't have to listen to anymore. We covered the important part, which is the 6-foot social distancing thing. Why is that important today? Because this story has appeared all over social media, not so much in the left-wing corporate media. And still, when you post a story like this on Meta, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, Google, they will still put one of those warning labels on it. Still, even though he's admitting it, it just sort of appeared that 6 feet is going to be the distance. It just sort of appeared. What? You got billions of people around the world who were trying desperately to stay 6 feet away from the people they love the most because they're trying to be responsible and not spread what this guy said to be a deadly virus. And, of course, all the other experts out there. Oh, it's deadly. You're going to die. You're going to die. You know, at one point in the United States, 60% of the people down there thought that the chances of dying from COVID-19 were well over 50%, when in fact it was maybe 1%, and that depends on how old you are and your state of health. Amazing. And also amazing was the fact that all of those provinces and states, they could all lift those mask mandates and those vaccine passports just suddenly. Is COVID suddenly gone? Did it just decide to pack up and leave the planet? It's gone? Oh, no. It's still out there. But you don't have to do this anymore. Why not? I don't know. I don't know. And none of these questions have been answered as of yet, like we'll ever get one. And some of them are still demanding, not requesting, demanding COVID amnesty. Anyway, let's get on with this story because I believe it to be very, very interesting. Take a moment and think about how many public arguments and fights happened from mid-March 2020 until August of 2022 because the CDC instruction to Americans to remain at least 6 feet apart in all public places and gatherings was in effect. And of course, up here as well, all over the world, like I just pointed out. Think about how many times some finger wagging, and we've seen video, the masks, the 6-foot social distancing, even outside, not to mention the shaming and the job losses with the vaccine. But anyway, think about how many times some finger pointing, self-appointed social distancing police gave you grief because the distance between you and someone else measured out to less than 72 inches. Think about how many times you were told to trust the science when it turns out there was no science behind that rule. According to Dr. Anthony Fauci, the rule just sort of happened. In testimony to the House Oversight Committee, Dr. Fauci conceded there was no scientific evidence to justify the 6-foot social distancing rule that was in effect pretty much everywhere in the country during the COVID pandemic, worldwide. Remember those stupid arrows on the floors of supermarkets? Do you recall when discussions regarding kind of the at least 6-foot threshold began? The 6 foot in the school, 6 foot overall. I mean, 6 foot was applied at business. Yeah. It was applied in schools. It was applied here. At least how the messaging was applied was that 6-foot distancing was the distance that needed to be. You know, I don't recall. It just sort of happened. This is Fauci now. I don't recall like a discussion of whether it should be 5 or 6 or whatever. It was just that 6 foot is. And then the questioner says, did you see any studies that supported 6 feet? I was not aware of studies that, in fact, that would be a very difficult study to do. I know. I'm just trying to figure out why 6 versus 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah. Like 6 is a significant distance. I mean, you've testified here. I think you testified in front of Mr. Scalise a couple of times when I was working for him and recalling the hearing rooms, instead of like 7 members on top of the guys, there's 2. And right, it was 2 staffers, just 2 staffers. So anyway, this is what Fauci said. It just kind of came around. And Fauci conceded that he couldn't recall seeing any studies supporting masking for children, or that the masking of children was against recommendations by the World Health Organization. You know what? Sorry, that's not a plural, World Health Organization. You know what? It's fine that we go ahead and put our children in front of us, but it's time we start saying masking for all, not just for children, because it creates a huge social impediment for adults as well. I was in a 7-Eleven today buying a pack of gum. There was a guy standing next to me with a mask on, looking stupid. And not because he was wearing the mask, it was the facial expression I suppose he had under the mask. I couldn't tell because of the mask if he was embarrassed, ashamed, or if he was just really anxious to get out of there because of all those unmasked people. It was difficult to say. We still have people out there wearing masks, breathing barriers in public because they're afraid. Still. We can say children, that's fine, but everybody should be included in this conversation, not just kids. So Fauci conceded he couldn't recall seeing any studies supporting masking for children, or that the masking of children was against recommendations by the WHO, and that no one ever bothered to do a cost-benefit analysis on the consequences of masking children. Another question we get a lot in the masking space is the masking of children, particularly kids down to 2 years old. Right, Fauci says. The WHO recommended against masking children less than 5 because masks are, and I'm quoting them, not in the overall interest of the child, and then against children 6 to 11 from wearing masks because, and again, quoting, of the potential impact of wearing a mask on learning and psychological development. Was there ever a cost-benefit analysis done on the unintended consequences of masking kids versus the protection it would give them? Not to my knowledge. Do you recall reviewing any studies or data supporting masking for children? You know, I might have, Mitch, but I don't recall specifically that I did. I might have. That is the testimony of Anthony Fauci today. Here's some of it. I'll play it for you.
The accusation being circulated that I influenced these scientists to change their minds by bribing them with millions of dollars in grant money is absolutely false and simply preposterous.
The hearing became heated at points.
Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor. You're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
They're treating you, Dr. Fauci, like a convicted felon. Actually, you probably wish they were treating you like a convicted felon. They treat convicted felons with love and admiration.
Dr. Fauci admitted that the social distancing guidelines to stay 6 feet apart had no scientific basis.
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared. It actually came from the CDC. The CDC was responsible for those kinds of guidelines for schools, not me. So when I said that it just appeared, it appeared. Was there any science behind it? What I meant by no science behind it is that there wasn't a controlled trial that said compare 6 foot with 3 feet with 10 feet. So there wasn't that scientific evaluation of it.
And hit back at any suggestions he was involved in any cover-up to try to discredit the lab leak theory.
But I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory. What is conspiracy?
That's not what you said 4 years ago. Back then, you were dying to tell the world it was a conspiracy theory, but not now.
Is the kind of distortions of that particular subject, like it was a lab leak and I was parachuted into the CIA like Jason Bourne and told the CIA that they should really not talking about a lab leak.
Thank you.
I had no input into the content of the published paper. The second issue is a false accusation that I tried to cover up the possibility that the virus originated from a lab. In fact, the truth is exactly the opposite.
While the hearing went over...
All right, never mind. We've seen his emails from that period in time. They've been published all over X. We know he knew. To what extent? We don't. Unless more of these emails come out. The Twitter files are still not finished. There's still much more yet to be dumped, apparently. So I guess we're going to have to wait. But in the meantime, this guy walks around free. How does he sleep at night? Is my question. And I think it's a very valid one. But then again, we know what he did during the 80s with AIDS. Right? All right. So Japan is surprising us. What I thought to be a rather compliant population is finally starting to stand up. World's biggest protest against the WHO starts in Japan with former Minister for Internal Affairs and Communications and current House Representative Kazuhiro Haraguchi kicking it off. He said, as a member of the National Diet, National Legislature of Japan, I apologize to all of you. I apologize to all of you. So many have died, and they shouldn't have. What's he talking about? The highlights. To those who tragically lost their lives to this biological infernal thing, I want to offer my most heartfelt condolences. The images of those who should not have died and the frustration, sadness, and helpless feelings. As a member of the National Diet, again, the National Legislature of Japan, I apologize to all of you. I apologize to you all. So many have died they shouldn't have. When I travel around different areas, I see people who can't stand, who can't walk, can't go to school or their workplaces. We tried to respond with Japan's medicine when biological weapons like corona spread. It was ivermectin, developed by Dr. Satoshi Umura. We tried to bring this case, and it was first proposal to the National Diet. However, they were crushed. Why? Because they're cheap, inexpensive. Just yesterday, I met with 3 members of the National Legislature. They're falling to pieces. Some are hospitalized, but they don't speak up. They don't say anything. They don't say anything. The other day, I spoke with Mishima from Channel 3. I was banned. They're trying still to silence our voices. They're trying to silence our voices. They're trying to block out our freedom, our resistance, our power. They're trying to block it. but we will never lose. And I firmly 100% agree with that. We can't lose. You cannot keep the truth away. It's like trying to hold down a massive ball under the water. You can hold it down for a little bit, but it's going to get wet and it's round and you can't grab it. And eventually it's going to pop up. And it's popping up all over the place right now. There's an MLA in Alberta who has been vaccine injured, a UCP one yet, who still refuses to speak out on this. And I believe that's because of the corrupt Alberta Health Services. I believe Alberta Health Services are quite possibly, and then again, I mean, I'm talking out my butt here because we're starting to see the beginnings of corruption in Alberta Health Services, but we haven't seen any yet in the other provinces. Sorry, that's wrong. BC, we've seen some, but not in Saskatchewan. We've seen it in Saskatchewan, but not to the extent. We've seen it in Manitoba, but nobody in Manitoba is talking. Ontario, there's a couple of doctors standing up, a few nurses, frontline nurses still standing up. Quebec, Maritimes, nobody's talking still. So those health systems could be just as corrupt as the ones in Alberta and British Columbia. We don't know because nobody's talking yet. But we are starting to get to the root of the problem. So it's going to take a collective force of will from us all to get these guys to talk. I can't remember the name of the UCP MLA from Alberta who's been vaccine injured, but I think I should try and get him on the show. He won't come on. But what if 15 or 20 of us independent broadcasters all get together and start inviting him on all of our shows? He's going to have to say no, 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 no. He's going to have to start blocking people on social media, and politicians can't block people on social media. And then you guys get involved. Marco Van Hugenbos knows the guy's name, I think. I can't quite remember his name off the top of my head right now. If you know his name, send me a message, put it in the comments, and tag me so that I can reach out to the guy. Anyway, we've talked about social distancing. We've talked about masks, talked about all the fun stuff back in the COVID era, but we haven't really talked about vaccines yet. So let's let Justin Trudeau do that. According to gov.x is corrupt on X, Justin Trudeau says he's bringing vaccines back to Canada so when the next pandemic hits, people will be able to get their boosters faster. Watch what this clown has to say here.
I'll never forget how I felt back in December of 2020 when I heard that the first shipment of COVID-19 vaccines had landed in Canada. We were able to procure enough shots for Canadians to get vaccinated, but at the same time, we really should be developing and manufacturing our own supply for Canadians. Now, you probably know that insulin was invented here in Canada. Well, I'm at the Sanofi manufacturing site in North York, Ontario, and it was on this site that insulin was first mass-produced for Canada and beyond. With our investment, Sanofi is creating the largest biomanufacturing facility in Canada right here. This facility means that Sanofi can produce a lot more life-saving vaccines like flu and booster shots faster. And it means they can scale up research and development of new shots because we want the next vaccine the world will need to be produced right here in Canada.
I can't stand him. I can't stand him. I can't take it much longer. I'm sure you feel the same. There are millions of Canadians who feel exactly the same as well. And apparently, there are now dozens of liberals, liberal MPs, liberal political staffers who are plotting against Justin Trudeau, a tu Brutus. Yes. And one of them is possibly this one right here. The Nazi, the World Economic Forum, Nazi granddaughter herself, Chrystia Freeland. Now look at this. This comes from streetpolitics.com. I don't trust this. However, it is a good yarn. The author of this story offers nothing in the way of proof, but it is a good yarn, and it makes a lot of sense. If you're thinking, you know, one door opens and another one opens and then another one, like Bugs Bunny trying to get to the other room there, or the villain in that Bugs Bunny cartoon where the door is door, and then he finally opens the last door and he falls 500 feet. Where was that one? The one where where he wanted Bugs to drop 500 feet from the top of into a little bucket of water. Anyway, Freeland covertly plots Trudeau's ouster as leader flails. In a stunning coup attempt, Chrystia Freeland has set her sights on Justin Trudeau's job, with multiple Liberal insiders now backing her brazen play for power. And again, no proof is provided here. Trudeau faces being unceremoniously ousted and replaced by his own deputy, but make no mistake, Freeland's ambition is fueled by the World Economic Forum puppet masters determined to tighten their grip on Canada. Installing their obedient servant Freeland is, without question, a desperate ploy to obscure the WEF's influence as it imposes its will. Blindsided by her betrayal, Trudeau scrambles to keep power while momentum builds behind Freeland's palace coup. The oblivious Liberals think swapping one tarnished World Economic Forum puppet with another will appease the public, but handing the reins to Freeland, an equally loyal foot soldier of the globalist agenda, will only amplify the outrage. This audacious move toward changing the liberal globalist guard, orchestrated by the World Economic Forum, confirms their takeover of Canada is accelerating, but citizens are fed up with arrogant governance by elite puppet masters. Freeland's brazen coup attempt may hasten the Liberal order's collapse. Deputy Prime Minister of Finance and Minister of Finance Chrystia Freeland has been playing it smart and cautious at the same time while attending and obeying failed programs and plans by Trudeau. It seems like even Freeland is fed up with all the hassle. The revelation that Freeland intends to run again in the next federal election has set off alarm bells, sending shockwaves through the Liberal Party and concerning Canadians. She's been eyeing Trudeau's seat for months now. Again, no proof of this at all. However, it's ignited now more than ever. So let's break it down. With all the backlash and opposition toward the federal government's plans and programs, it seems that Freeland finally noticed what she'll be facing under Trudeau's regime. Freeland's decision to run again is already raising concerns about whether she's a fit candidate, given the Liberal struggles under Trudeau's faltering leadership. With Trudeau losing control of his party and reputation, the news of Freeland's renewed candidacy has sparked worries within Liberal ranks about their prospects in the federal election. In an interview in December with Freeland, she was directly asked if she would consider leading the party if Trudeau steps down. Despite her vague answer, her grin and fake confusion tell another story. It seems she had known all along that she would become one of the Liberals' top candidates. Her plans to stab Trudeau in the back definitely in play. Moreover, her precise and careful statements in the interview can be seen as political maneuvering. Freeland played it smart by claiming that she wants to help the Canadians as much as much as she can. This shows her remaining loyalty to Trudeau while at the same time keeping her options open. Freeland's top spot on the list of recommended candidates raises questions. Is her renewed candidacy a desperate move by the flailing Liberals to regain control ahead of the federal election, giving the government's tenuous grip under Trudeau? Are they counting on Freeland being easy to manage and appease voters? All right, never mind that. Trudeau blind to Freeland's betrayal. Let's get down to the next thing here. Now, the author of this piece talks about Mark Carney here. I have to admit, spreading Mark Carney's name as a potential replacement was a calculated ploy on the Liberals' part, not a genuine promotion of him. So what he's saying here is that Mark Carney is just kind of like this wild globalist, that everybody knows it. And they're trying to get him in. Well, we can't have a globalist. We can't have, because he is. I mean, everything he says, I mean, he's a globalist. He's worse than Freeland and Trudeau combined. And the Conservatives have already talked about that in several videos on YouTube and all over the internet for that matter. So If Mark Carney is that bad a globalist, then maybe Freeland's looking better. So that's the gist of this particular article. I think it's funny, but I don't necessarily think that it's true. I might be wrong. I mean, Trudeau has admitted that he is running again, and he said it just last week in some podcast. So he's not stepping down. His ego's too big, man. It's just no matter how many, unless they absolutely force him at some kind of gunpoint, or maybe they've got pictures of him screwing a goat or a pig on that farm in BC, Picton's farm. Even then, he probably wouldn't be scared. They've seen me with blackface. What's this? Screwing a pig. Who cares? It's AI. I'll just say it's AI. Remarkable arrogance from that guy. I believe he is running in the next election, if there is, in fact, an election. Now, this story came from TNC, and I thought it was funny. Chrystia Freeland wears $740 designer sneakers while speaking to Canadians about affordability. There they are. There's the sneakers right there. 700. Actually, that's the low end price, apparently, for this particular model. Freeland facing criticism for wearing high-priced designer sneakers while bringing the government's affordability message to Canadians' doors. She was out canvassing in Toronto, in the Toronto St. Paul's riding, for the new Liberal candidate there. And she wore a pair of Moo sneakers, although no longer in the catalog. One website shows the original retail price for the Napa leather lace-up sneakers in black, white, as between $740 and $1,210 before tax. So let's cut that down the middle there. What does that work out to? Somewhere in the middle, $900, $950. Let's say throw the HST on that. What are we talking about? Over $1,000. She has spent over $1,000 on these shoes. Previous photos show Freeland wearing the same type of shoes as far back as 2021. Moo, is it Miu Miu or Miu Miu? Is an Italian high fashion brand owned by Prada. The devil wears Prada. Freeland posted a picture of herself wearing the sneakers at a weekend canvassing event for Liberal candidate Leslie Church. There it is there. Right there. There's her sneakers. There. So that's our tone deaf government still completely la 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 crash burn all behind them, right? Just like burning. Tent cities. Oh, hey, guess who was just at the Bilderberg meetings this past weekend? Mark Carney. Yeah, that's right. So you know what the Bilderbergs are, right? This is the group of elitists that get together once a year and talk about, how they're going to rule the world. The Bilderbergs. So let's just go down the list here and see. There's a couple from Canada on this list. Yoshua Bengio, professor in computer science and operations research at the University of Montreal. Who else we got? Mark Carney, Brookfield Asset Management. If you haven't seen Andrew Scheer's video on Mark Carney, it's on YouTube. You should go watch it. It's actually fairly entertaining considering it's Andrew Scheer. So Mark Carney was there at the Bilderbergs, and there was one other, Francois Champagne. Yeah, there he is, Francois Philippe Champagne, the Canadian Minister of Innovation, Science, and History. So yeah, we've got our fingers in that pie, man. The Bilderbergs. Let's get together and rule the world, Pinky. That's what these people are trying to accomplish. The Bilderbergs, the World Economic Forum, the Club of Rome, all of these guys. And there's other ones that I haven't even listed here that I can't remember their names right now. But they're all in it. They're all in on it. The question is, and this is something that we really have to consider moving forward. Mark Carney, man of destiny. This is an article that came out 3 years ago in the National Post. We'll get to this in just a second. Man of destiny arises to revolutionize society. It won't be pleasant. Yeah, he's a bad globalist. Because he actually comes out and talks about it, whereas Freeland and Trudeau, they don't. They're trying to hide their involvement in this. Anyway, we think about all of these billionaires, these elitists, as they're known. And they're not really elitists. They're parasites. is what they are. They feed off the world. They don't make anything. They don't build anything. They don't come up with any ideas for anything. This is not to say they're not smart. They are smart and conniving in certain ways, but they don't build things. They destroy things. We're the ones that build things. We're the ones that build communities and homes and infrastructure and all of that stuff. We build the important stuff that the world runs on, right? Without us, they'd be nothing, and they know that, but they got to keep us in control. But my question still is this one monolith, or is this a bunch of disparate groups all trying to rule the world, and they're playing a chess game? Maybe there's a chess tournament going on right now, right? Maybe we've got like two elites, two parasites playing chess over here, and then we've got two more playing over here, and then two more over here. It's like a big tournament. And then the winner moves on to the next, and so on and so on. Personally, I don't think it's like that. I think it's egos. And I'm not sure if you've ever met somebody with such a massive ego that they don't even notice you exist. Because I spent time in entertainment, I've seen people like that, and it's really funny, actually. Like, you start laughing at them because they're just, they're just so full of themselves, so self-important. That's what these people are. And that they view us as less than human. But they view each other as a challenge. And they may even have kind of a grudging respect for each other. That doesn't mean they don't want to win. They do. They want to get their agenda in play, not the other guys. So maybe it's 300 or 30 or 60 or however many there are, all of these parasites all fighting with each other to wrest control. Ultimately, I think they'll do themselves in before they ever get to us. By the time they ever get to us, they're going to be so depleted and defeated that they won't have a chance. That's what I think is happening. No matter what we see going on right now, I don't want you to be dejected by it. I know it looks bad with all this rainbow crapola going on right now. It's a dying it's a dying animal, man. It's one last thing. Now, this doesn't mean we give up the fight and go, yes, we've won. We don't do that. We continue to fight until the very end. We cannot allow people like Mark Carney to wrest control of our budget, of our finance system. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. He was the governor of the Bank of England. He is a man who is possessed with this new idea of stakeholder capitalism, which is nothing more than communism, actually. So Peter Foster is an author of 10 or so books. He's a right-leaning, not heavily right-wing extremist. He's a right-leaning conservative author. Has written a lot about politics over the years. And he says, Mark Carney, man of destiny, arises to revolutionize society. It won't be pleasant. What Carney ultimately wants is a technocratic dictatorship justified by climate alarmism. Ooh, interesting. Now, the thing is, this was written 3 years ago. Now, back then, we were fighting a different battle, so we didn't pay attention. So that's how these guys roll, right? They pick their spots. They plan ahead. But we're starting to see their patterns now more and more and more, and we can call them on it. That's why they're very upset right now. That's why Tedros almost threw a fit last week when the World Health Organization treaty didn't go through. This is not to say they're not trying again, because they are. They all got together in Geneva. A couple of days after that, they all got together. Now we're working on a new one. They are relentless. And that's why we have to be relentless. And they have made inroads. I mean, that's the other thing too, right? They push ahead 6 steps. We push back 4, but they've still pushed ahead 2 steps. So we have to be on our guard all the time. In his book, Values, Building a Better World for All, anybody who writes that crap is one of those egomaniacs I just discussed. Mark Carney, former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, claims that Western society is morally rotten and that it's been corrupted by capitalism, which has brought about a climate emergency that threatens life on Earth. This, he claims, requires rigid controls on personal freedom, industry, and corporate funding. Whoa. And this is the guy they want to be our next prime minister? Carney's views are important because he is UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. He's also an advisor both to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Again, this is 3 years ago. And the next big climate conference in Glasgow, and to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Since the advent of COVID, Carney has been front and center in the promotion of a political agenda known as the Great Reset or the Green New Deal or Build Back Better. All are predicated on the claim that COVID and its disruption of the global economy provides a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not just to regulate climate, but to frame a more fair, more diverse, more inclusive, more safe, more woke world. Carney draws inspiration from, among others, Marx, Engels, and Lenin. But the agenda he promotes differs from Marxism in two key respects. First, the private sector is not to be expropriated, but made a partner in reshaping the economy and society. And I believe not all of the private sector, just some of the private sector. Second, it does not make a promise to make the lives of ordinary people better, but worse. Carney's Brave New World will be one of severely constrained choice, less flying, less meat, more inconvenience, and more poverty. Assets will be stranded. Used gasoline-powered cars will be unsaleable. Inefficient properties will be unrentable. He promises. That's what Mark Carney has said in a book. It's unbelievable that nobody has noticed this yet about this guy. The agenda's objectives are in fact already being enforced, not primarily by legislation, but by the application of non-governmental, that is non-democratic, pressure on the corporate sector via the ever-expanding dictates of ESG, environmental social governance, and by sustainable finance, which is designed to starve non-compliant companies of funds, thus rendering them, as Carney puts it, climate roadkill. What ESG actually represents is corporate ideological compulsion. It's a key instrument of stakeholder capitalism. That's Mark Carney. That's who he is. That's what he wants. And is it any wonder that Canada and the UK are both under the thumb of this stuff, at least for now? I am so very, very happy that finally these guys are being called out on their BS. All right, we're going to get into the rainbow stuff here. And we've got a lot to cover. We're going to cover most of this in the extension on shadowdavis.com after 9 o'clock Central. So if you're an all-access member, I'll see you there right after 9. If not, I'll see you tomorrow night. Or you can always become an all-access member. I will tell you, guys, that this past weekend I spent 3 days in front of a computer screen. So if my eyes look like two pea holes in the snow, that's because they are essentially too much screen time, and I've been working on the new site. We've been working on the new site. I've been working on new operating systems, and we are improving it. Finally, I saw a sample of how it's going to work on Friday afternoon, and what it looks like is the screen that you're seeing right now, if you're watching on your mobile. The chat will be beneath the screen. This is coming in the next week, week and a half. The chat will be beneath your screen. You will be able to chat on whatever device you're watching on while you're watching the show simultaneously. Right now, what we've got is a situation where there's essentially two websites in play. One that works on a desktop and one that kind of works on a phone. So you can see the show on your phone or on your tablet, but what you got to do is make sure you move it around to get to the right point, and I can understand how frustrating that is for many people. So you've got to shrink it and then move it around on your phone right now. But what I really want to do right now is thank you for your patience as we get this thing up and running. It's going to be great. Rewards are coming, including the improvement of the website and some prizes to give away in the next couple of weeks as well, just because I think you're really cool. Anyway, here's what Jordan Peterson had to say about celebrating Pride which is, of course, one of the 7 deadly sins.
This is the celebration of pride, the hedonistic celebration of pride. You know, we have Pride Month. Well, what are we celebrating? First of all, how about we don't celebrate pride? Pride's a cardinal sin. And you might say, well, they don't mean pride. They mean, you know, it's a group of oppressed people, and now they're just finding their identity and they're getting some security in that identity. And so what they mean by pride is security in that identity. It's like the word's pride. That's the word that was chosen. So I don't care what the lies around that are. And it's pride in relationship, as far as I can tell, to nothing but hedonistic self-gratification. It's like your identity is gonna be your sexual desire. That's your identity, your sexual desire. So that's sexual desire is at the center of hedonism. So that means you've reduced your identity to the most immature and hedonistic part of you. The part that would exploit someone else for your own gratification, for example. The part that would exploit you for your own gratification. And now that's your identity. And now that's what we celebrate. Yeah, no, that's a very bad idea. That's the worship of the golden calf. And that's what, in the Exodus story, for example, when Moses disappears, so he's the prophet of God, when the prophet of God disappears, the Israelites are left in the hands of Aaron, and Aaron's the political leader. And in no time flat, the political leader offers the slavish Israelites the worship of the golden calf. They're all drunk and dancing naked around the fire in a way that makes them contemptible to their enemies. That's what it says in the biblical text. You don't have to be much of a genius to understand that, you know, Rachel Levine is not exactly striking fear in the heart of the Iranians. We're so damn stupid.
Yeah. So, you know, you know, in the last year or so, when it comes to Jordan, I've been disappointed in some of the things that he has said, and one of the things he has done, the ARC project, and some of the people that he has invited to the ARC. And I understand the kind of pressure that he's under, and I also understand the kind of money he is surrounded by. There are people who are constantly wanting a piece of him. And it's hard. It's very difficult to follow your own path when you've got many, many, many people who are trying to drag you down theirs. And so, yes, he does a great job of it in most cases. Other times, not so much. But I do believe that he has found the word of Jesus. He has found the word of God. And I think he is now getting back on the right path. He is so smart and so common sense, so logical. I am not suggesting by any stretch that we need somebody to follow. We don't. What we do need is thought leaders. On a large scale, medium scale, small scale. We need thought leaders to get us going on our own thing, on our own journeys. All kind of pulling the same rope, obviously, without causing too much of a problem. Learning how to work together, learning how to cooperate, even though we've got our own differences that we can solve later, or we won't. But ultimately, right now, the deal is beat the enemy. And then later we can go and work out our problems, or not at all. Then we become enemies later, down the road, years down the road, but not nearly as bad as this. Anyway, just my thoughts on the matter. Yesterday afternoon, this is from Mr. Guns and Gear on X. We checked in on the Pride Parade in Philadelphia as it was being intercepted by pro-Palestine protesters, and everything seemed peaceful. Well, we all knew that wouldn't last. Somehow, it devolved into this by night's end. All right, I'm gonna make this bigger so everybody can see. Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking right now. We're going to go back to the beginning of this. What you're thinking is probably, who's who? I don't know who the Pride Parade people are, and I don't know who the Palestine people are. You will see more towards the end. It starts to show itself. Okay, so from what I got out of that, and I know it got kind of herky-jerky there a couple of times, what I personally got out of that, I guess, were the people wearing underwear and the leather chaps and the half-naked ones. Those are the gay pride people, and then the other people were the Palestinian protesters. I guess. I don't know. It happened in Winnipeg, not to that extent. And by the way, I have to ask, for the Philadelphia situation, where were the cops? Were you so badly outnumbered that you didn't dare show your face in that until things kind of settled down a little bit? Because we did see smoke grenades going off, and we didn't see any police setting them off. So maybe it was the Palestinians, or maybe it was the gays, or the trans. I don't know. A group of, now this is from Vicky Campbell, who's one of the biggest truanons that you'll ever see on X. She lied on her social media by saying a group of homophobic conservatives blocked the annual Pride Parade in downtown Winnipeg. Left-wing corporate CTV, why can't you just call them what they are and stop pussyfooting around a bunch of losers who just can't go on with their lives without interfering with somebody else's? You see, that's what they do. They call you and they accuse us of what they are and what they're doing. That's the gaslighting of it all. So the replies were, no, they were pro-Hamas guys, knob. No, pro-Hamas gays. Maybe Ann Dewey meant to say guys and said gays instead. And some people actually believed it. Now, I'm not sure if these are actual people or bots. Illegal alien, for example. You see, look at this here. Illegal alien. What's that? That's not a real account. A crazy alien whisperer. That is a bot right there. No profile picture. Like, that's the thing. They can't use a profile picture because they'd have to get it from somewhere. And if they use somebody else's and somebody catches them, that person catches them, they can be sued. Because the freedom crowd is the actual I'm offended by other people crowd. LOL. Like, what? Jenny says, not homophobes, trans, queer, and two-spirit protesting Gaza and asking Winnipeg Pride to stop spending money on companies and groups that support Israel's genocide and to put more money into helping the queer community. Oh, so if you don't help me with my protest and give me your money, then you're bad and we're going to have a fight in the streets. It was your Hamas friends that blocked the Winnipeg Pride. It was actually trans and pro-Palestinian protesters. Disappointed to hear this, says another bot, Ed Perry. Never expected this of Winnipeg, as this city has always seemed friendly and accepting of everyone. These right-wing radicals keep popping up with their usual hate messages. Yeah. So we have more on the transing of the West coming up in the extension in just a couple of minutes at shadowdavis.com. Boyd Anderson joins the show tomorrow night, you guys. I always enjoy having Boyd on the air. I like Boyd, but one of the first things I want to tell you is that I don't necessarily believe everything Boyd has to say. I let him talk. I let him say his piece because that's why he's on the show, obviously. But I will call him out on certain things. Have you ever seen David Icke or maybe Alex Jones on with Joe Rogan? That's what it's like when Boyd Anderson comes on this show. Absolutely, you get the opportunity to speak your piece. And for some of the more extreme kinds of things, we actually ask for explanations. All right, where'd that come from? Where'd you get that from? Now, we don't do it all the time because, the interrupting would be every 30 seconds. So we try to keep that to a minimum so we can achieve a flow on the show. And then I have a couple of other special guests lined up for later on this week. So I'll see you in the extension in a couple of minutes on shadowdavis.com if you're an all-access member. If you're not, I'll catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.